And now on the line is John Malone from Christian TV Ireland. John, welcome back to Near FM.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, I'm delighted to be talking to you, Darren. Go ahead.
Okay, John, I got in touch with you today to mainly talk about the decision by Veritas to close their shops in Ireland. First of all, though, as it has been a while since our last interview on Near FM, can you tell me how things with Christian TV Ireland are going with you in general since our last interview?
Well, they're going slow but sure. Subscriptions are improving because I've been doing a lot of live videos on the internet. I do 3 prayer videos in the morning, and I do something about the Saint Faustine or Sister Faustine. It is a lovely book presented by the Catholic Truth Society, and then I do some events in 2014. I started in 1990, and I'm now up to 2014, and there's quite an interest in those. And then I do 3 in the evening time. I do something about Bishop Strickland. I don't read because it's copyright. I paraphrase what I've read and add my own views, being that I'm a certain age, and I grew up when Latin was the universal language of the Catholic faith. Not many people know that, of course, but anyway, so I do that, and then I do some hymns, and then I do a little situation, let's talk, and I talk about this, that, or the other. So I've quite a few followers. Believe it or not.
I was looking at your YouTube channel recently. You have around or over 600 subscribers on YouTube, don't you?
That's right. Touching 700, 690 at the moment.
All right.
So it's moving up, thanks be to God. So that's a good sign. So, and then I have a credit card machine that I'll be able to take donations now when I get going around the country, because my car that I've bought a new car there because my old car was a Logan Estate, and a lovely car. A lorry crashed into me there Tuesday when I was coming out of a shopping centre, and it was his fault, so they accepted responsibility. So it was only ready yesterday. So I'll be I have now I have 2 cars, so I'll probably sell it, but I have to get the NCT on it and insure it, so it's in it's up to date and all the rest of it. So that's the story.
Okay.
You know, as you go through life, you get certain crosses coming your way, and you have to deal with it.
Okay, we'll move on to the main reason I got in touch with you to do this interview today. Around a week ago, in the first week of February, Veritas announced that they are going to close their shops in Ireland at the end of the year. I heard the interview you did recently on Highland Radio in Donegal, John, talking about this news. Can you start off by telling our listeners a bit about if you know about the history of Veritas in Ireland and your experience of the company?
That's right. Well, now they're established over 100 years, near enough, not long after the foundation of the state, and they grew, and they are very. According to me, I call to them regularly. I only called a couple of weeks ago, and got some items, and I have visited the one in Middle Abbey Street pretty regular, and I'm known there, and I find the people on the shop floor very good and helpful. And when you enter the store, it's a good experience. You're in a place that's a Catholic bookstore, and the staff that I meet are very good. And according to the staff that I meet, sales are quite good. Because when I'm in the shop, it's never just me. There's always a nice few people, older folk and younger folk. So it's not all just old timers that would have been practicing the Catholic faith from when they were young and still doing it. But young are going there too, and the people there are very helpful. And really, you need a shop when you're buying religious goods. I'm told that people buy things on the internet, but you can't talk to anybody on the internet, as far as I know. So when you visit Veritas, you're talking to people, and they're a marvelous, helpful people, and their stores should be kept.
I've been in their shop a few times in Abbey Street. I find it to be very good. I don't think I've ever bought in religious there that I can recall, but they have other. It's not just religious stuff they sell. They sell like gifts. Like I've bought a few kind of gifts, kind of like signs, like kind of Irish language signs or ornaments or whatever, you know. So I find it
Lovely.
very. And I've been in the shop in Blanchardstown a few times. The shop in Blanchardstown is fairly small, but the one in Abbey Street, I love that shop. It's a great shop. I was talking to my friend Cathal Leavy yesterday about this, John, and he said that he believes that the decision to close the Veritas shops will create yet another void in Irish life. Would you agree with that?
I certainly would, and that's why I offered to subscribe my own money of €10,000 and hope that I could attract at least 1,000 other like-minded Catholics with goodwill towards Veritas and prepared and have some funds themselves, and instead of keeping it in their pocket or whatever it is, subscribe to something as so good as Veritas to keep it going and their shops going. And most of their shops that I come across that I was speaking to, there's one in Letterkenny, one in Derry, and they're doing very good. And they were only opened there not that long ago, last year, as far as I know. And then there's one in Cork, which I have me doubts about where it's situated. Cork is a city that you need to have a bookstore in a certain position. Otherwise, you won't get the trade that you might normally expect to get. And then the one in Limerick. I've been in touch with the various independent media radio stations in those cities, and I've already had 2 interviews, one in Mayo, although there's none in Mayo, but you have Knock, and Veritas could very well know, not in Knock, but in perhaps Castlebar. That's a good busy town where they won't be competing with family stores. There's family stores in Knock, and they provide a great service, and I bought books and memorabilia there in Knock because I visited fairly regular. Great place to visit. But Veritas should be kept open with the proper guidance. And by the way, I suggest in that with 1,000 putting in 10,000 each, that'd be a substantial sum. I estimate it'd be 100 million, and that it would enable the stores to be kept open, except maybe 1 or 2 that are not doing any kind of trade, keeping them going. But I know the one in Letterkenny and Derry is doing well. And I'd say the one in Limerick. The one in Blanchardstown is small, but I've been in it and very helpful. They're all helpful. But I don't know about Cork. I know Cork. And Cork, if you have a business, it has to be in a certain position where you're going to get practicing Catholics kind of supportness, and then others that need to nourish their soul.
Yeah, I personally understand, like, obviously if they have 1 or 2 shops that aren't doing well, and I understand if they close down, but if shops are doing well, I don't know for the life of me why they can't keep them open.
Exactly, because they made profit. They made profit there a couple of years ago of 500,000. Now, I mean, as they were going through established that long, they were doing well as far as I know. Especially the Abbey Street, and maybe other stores hadn't been open much at the time, and they were doing well. So if they're making profit, it should have been ploughed into the business. I don't know. Does the bishop's own Veritas?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, they wouldn't be business orientated in the normal event. They must have helped it to be established, which was good when the faith was practiced by 90%, over 98% of the people, churches packed and confessions packed and all that. But unfortunately, the changes that came about in the Catholic faith, it didn't work out the way they might have intended. It had the opposite effect. So they took very bad decisions in doing what they did. But as regards Veritas, I think when they initially helped it to establish, I think it was time then for experienced business people to take it over that would know how to sort of put it on a sound footing and retain profits. So as you have a reserve when you hit a lean period, and maybe do something a bit more public than what they were doing. So there are various ways, and my suggestion was that as a cooperative movement, because if it wasn't for the cooperative movement, the farmers would have lost out. They were getting no prices for their produce, but when they joined and come together, there's always strength in numbers, and the cooperative movement was a great help for them, the same as it would be for Veritas.
I don't understand why they can't keep at least their shop open on Middle Abbey Street, because that's a big shop, and as you know, Dublin City is the capital city of Ireland, so I would have thought that that shop at a minimum would be able to be kept open, but I don't know, and I understand that if they kept the shop open on Abbey Street, just that shop, the other shops, no, the customers that go to other shops, most or at least a lot of them would go to the Abbey Street shop instead. You know what I mean? So, because Abbey Street shop is located in the central part of the city. Um,
It is a
I
great part.
go on, yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, the Abbey Street, they own that Abbey Street premises. The rest of their business, the rest of their shops, including their distribution centre, which they would be sending books all over the world, I'd say, and so they're all rented or leased. And the suggestion that I made is that they should own their stores. The one in Letterkenny is doing well, and the one in Derry is doing well. And so to find out where the ones are doing well, and that they should own their premises, because it's like when you start out in life, you rent. Because you haven't got the capital, but as you go through life, if you're prudent, you're saving a few quid, and then in due course you're able to buy something, provided it's not too exorbitant. Because no matter what age you are, houses were always more expensive than the income that you were getting, because as you went through life, your income wasn't as good as it is now. But then prices have gone sky high, whereas they haven't on the continent. There isn't this emphasis here on such high prices for houses, and because they're speculators and developers won't be making money over there, rents are controlled, and if a person is renting a house, they have to have a 35-year of lease or a 35-year period or more, and at the current rate of inflation, nothing to do with what you can get. It's already set. So that's the way for any civilized government to operate in. Unfortunately, ours don't operate in that system, and Britain doesn't either, and we seem to copy Britain, whereas in the continent it's quite the reverse. So that's about property. That's about renting, as I'm talking about. It's better to own your property, and the suggestion that I made is that those properties that are those Veritas stores are successful, and I think most of them are. I'm not so sure about Cork. I heard different reports there, but I'll find out about that. And the best thing is to take a positive view. I notice people sometimes seem to take a negative view of things. And I mean, that's no good. That doesn't solve any problems. think positive and do the right thing. And if it was put on a sound footing, even Abbey Street and all the rest of them, and the rest of the shops are not overstocked or overstaffed. So if you're running a business, you run it in such a way as each store would be profitable. And the manager would take steps to make sure that there'd be some permanent staff, but a lot of maybe part-timers. But their contribution would be just as valuable as anyone else.
Okay, John, you were saying that you have spoken kind of informally to some of the staff in some of the Veritas shops about how they're doing, and but have you talked to any of the people in charge of Veritas, like the top people
Well,
or the bishops around?
I spoke to the lady in charge of retail because when I contacted him, because I go into that middle register, and when I contacted him, and I paid by credit card, so my record will be there. And so when I rang, I spoke to a lady, and I gave her the particulars about the video I had produced for to try and get subscribers, and how to go, and who I could attract them, what way I could attract them. So she said that the one that would be more concerned about that was at a board meeting. But anyway, when she come off, she had found the video and had a very good conversation with her and what I was doing. So they were very appreciative of it. And I've got a nice letter from the chairman of Radio Maria. It's a priest, Father McCarthy. I think he's from Cork, and very grateful for what I'm trying to do, because I was hoping they'd give it some publicity in Radio Maria, which is a Catholic radio station, and then the Spirit Radio. I contacted them as well the same way, by way of email, and I didn't hear from them yet, but hopefully I will. And I've contacted other ones in wherever there's a Veritas store, and one or two where there's no Veritas stores, but I know them and I've been on their radio programs in the past for something else. So, when I put my shoulder to the wheel, I try to do the best I can to attract more that would be supportive of keeping the Lake of Veritas stores open. They're a jewel, and they should be kept open.
And now on the line is Cathal Leavy. Cathal, welcome back to Near FM.
How you doing, Darren?
Okay, cool. Cathal, can you tell me what is your experience of the Veritas shops in Ireland?
Well, I've been a customer now for probably 20, 30 years. It would be close to 30 years anyway. And I was just saying, I was very, very saddened when I heard the news that they're going to be closing down, because it's really, really devastating news. It's awful to think that, like, we're no longer going to be having Jesus in our lives the way things are going, It's awful for the kids growing up, most especially, because they're not reared at all with Jesus, not reared knowing the love of Jesus, not knowing Mary. And it's just devastating news for Dublin and Ireland to hear that Veritas are going to be closing down. And I'm really saddened. I said there's going to be a lot more problems now. There's going to be a lot more sin in society. People are going to be turning to alcohol, drugs, because there's going to be a void in their life. And I'm just very, very saddened. But mostly for kids, it's awful. They'll not know Jesus anymore. They'll not know the love of Jesus. And it's just very, very sad. And to think with Veritas gone now, it's going to be awful. Like, people are just going to be, they're going to be turning to drink and drugs. There's going to be a complete void in their life. And as I said, look, when I was young, I always prayed the rosary with my family. That was back in the 80s. And now I'm just saying, kids, all they do now is they're on their smartphones. They're very, compared to other generations, it's just a society that's given rise to selfish kids, uncaring kids. And said now with Veritas gone, it's like, it's awful. The rug has been pulled from under them, and I feel very sorry for them, admittedly, but like, it's just awful to think Veritas is closing. But it's very sad. Like, Jesus is love, God is love, and we need that Jesus back in people's lives. And with Veritas gone, it's just a sad day.
When you say there's a kind of void, especially for young people nowadays, I imagine you don't just mean because of Veritas closing, but Veritas closing is just one kind of example of that void, is it?
Yeah, it's a definitely void with Veritas gone. Like, they were such a prominent bookshop and gift shop in Dublin over the decades. Like, so it's just very sad to see with Veritas gone. It's just another major void in Dublin society, and it is. I just think people are going to be turning to drugs now, and drink, excessive drink. This is what happens when you take Jesus out of people's lives. It's the truth.
Okay.
People think it's not, but it's the truth.
Okay, a man I know, and I've just interviewed him, John Malone from Christian TV Ireland. But John has offered to put up €10,000 of his own money if the owners of Veritas change their minds. And John has done a couple of radio interviews on big radio stations around Ireland in the last few days about his call, and he could be on more. Do you agree with John? Do you think there should be kind of like an orchestrated campaign like this to try to keep the shops open?
Yeah, definitely, and I very much respect John for putting his money where his mouth is and trying to help save Veritas, because we all should be out campaigning. We should be out picketing the government doll and all that, trying to get this Veritas reopened, or to stay open. And please God, it does happen. Please God, I just beg and hope that it will happen. And anybody who mounts a campaign, I'm 100% behind them to help get this Veritas reopened or get it to stay open. And John Malone, is that his name? John Malone. He's a very good man to put this offer forward, and we all have to try and help support as much as we can.